Hello, beautiful people who find themselves here, ready to look at this pick a card. Brave ones, ready to look at themselves on a deeper level. I welcome you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone who watches, likes my videos, subscribes, book sessions, and readings. You are appreciated. Even those who just come to watch are very much appreciated and welcome here. We're looking at mimic. So, mimic is pretty much the way humans work, you know? If you look at Dr. Bruce Lipton's information about epigenetics, you can find that we get downloaded our first 7 years from our environment. Okay, this is done through mimic, right? We humans mimic what we are taught, but we also have the ability to cope in ways that do not involve mimic, right? Like if we experience something that we don't want to experience again, or we don't want to feel confused or the pain of it, we might cope in such a way that makes it so that we don't repeat that. So we're certainly capable of breaking out of mimic. And we're certainly capable of discerning and using our comprehension to decide how we better, how we want to navigate. I don't know if Mercury's in retrograde or what, but let me just clear the energy here a little bit, okay? I don't think Mercury's in retrograde. I haven't been paying attention to astrology very much. So, let me just burn a little Palo Santo for us while we talk. You may or may not have seen my video about mimic being one of the stages of infancy where we bond with our parents through mimic. So this, if you're a mother, you know that the baby smiles when you smile, the baby coos when you coo. It's a developmental stage. If there's trauma that happens during that stage, I propose that this is when what we call empaths get opened up to a way of absorbing other people's illness because they get stuck in the mimic phase of development. We're below the level of consciousness without deciding to do so. It's a primal instinct where they are copying the other. So their energy can take on the energy of another and duplicate it and live within that energy. And this is indicative of them wanting to bond with somebody else, you know? And there could be people that say, well, I don't want to bond with that person, but I'm still taking on their energy. Well, maybe there's a part of you that wishes that you didn't dislike that person. Maybe there's a part of you that wishes that you could have more in common with that person. And it's an unconscious part. Like this is happening on a primal level is what I propose. So, yes, mimic can get us stuck in phases that are something that we're learning from, but that we can outgrow when we're ready to consciously use our free will to change the pattern. So, while I'm saying that mimic is not a bad thing and that it's a completely human thing, I'm also saying it's a program. And what we're doing here at this time on Earth is evolving, as we always have been. We're evolving in such a way that we are ready to leave behind programs of limitation and allow people to live here free range, so to speak, embodying the full essence of who they really are on an individual basis. Okay? So this means that we each get to be ourselves, that we're not doing things to try to fit in or fit in a box or to be acceptable socially. I'm not saying that we're leaving our manners behind. I'm not saying that we wouldn't be kind people to those in our community. I'm just saying that we wouldn't try to copy somebody in order to be liked by them, which seems like a very infantile way of operating. And as a humanity, perhaps we've been in an infantile stage of humanity. And now we are evolving past that need to be more individual. This is maybe like the toddler that starts asking all the questions, right? And so you find as you ask these questions and you get answers, because the universe will answer you when you ask, that there's all kinds of things that aren't actually the way that you thought they were when you start asking the questions. So we're looking at, where are you stuck in mimic? And when I say stuck, I'm not meaning to imply that you've done something wrong or bad. It just means you're ready to let that go. You're ready to use to become aware of it, or that you already are aware of it. So we'll target it in this reading, and that you can use your free will to break out of it. So that's what we're looking at. You may see this sculpture on my board here. This is my violet flame sculpture, in case you were curious about what it is. If you are not familiar with the violet flame, you may want to look it up. I've been using the energy for years. Very important, powerful energy that I use in my healing practices. And these days I'm just doing healing practices on myself. When I talk with other people, I'm not necessarily doing energy healing with them. Sometimes it happens naturally, but more or less what I like to do is empower others to do it themselves. So I teach tools instead of acting as the service provider. So if you're interested in a reading personally, or to have a spiritual conversation, or to take a look at your astrological birth chart, you can book through my website. Okay, let's see. We're just going to do 1, 2, and 3. So if you need something to choose from, let's use these candles. Okay, this is going to be pick 1, pick 2, pick 3. Okay, so pause if you need more time. And let's begin with pick 1. I'm just going to get 3 of these, so 1 more. Oh, not just 1 more, we're going to get a few more apparently. Okay, so right off the bat, what flipped over first was the 6 of Wands, which is like your public reputation and how you're seen by those around you, and perhaps even the world at times. This is when you're shining brightly in the essence of who you are. So let's see what it's trying to say about that. We've got the Hermit in reverse. We've got the Death and Rebirth in reverse. 6 of Wands. 3 of Swords. And the King of Wands in reverse. Okay. You know, the first kind of feeling that I'm getting from this, I know there's a glare on the card, so that's inconvenient. I'll put this card down here. I'll put this card down here. The first kind of feeling I'm getting from these cards is that it's an image thing. I think you were really sold on the idea of it matters what people think of you. Your reputation is everything. And I mean everything. I mean, like, whatever you're really good at and passionate about, that takes a back seat. Whenever you need time to yourself, I think you would prioritize making sure that you were still seen by people. Like, it would be unfavorable to you to step back out of the limelight for a minute, because what if people forget about you, or what if somebody replaces you, or what if somebody decides that they have a better option, or, it's like you're breaking your own heart because you don't realize that what you're doing is keeping up a very you're keeping up with a very shallow facade, so to speak. It's like this doesn't allow you to be who you really are. You have things that you're really good at. You have things that your soul came to do. You have things that your heart are drawn to. You have things to be with yourself about, and you have things that you're ready to let go of. And it's kind of like all that takes a back burner to your image. Okay? Now, I want to share some information about this, because I don't want you to feel like you're being shamed. I understand that it might be difficult to be called out on this, but I want to say that this is a pretty common way for the older generations to experience life, because a lot of the older generations, if they were in a family, keeping up with the Joneses was a thing. People mowed their lawns as a status symbol. When something bad happened in the family, it was brushed under the carpet so that no one could judge you or think lesser of you. Like, there was definitely a lot of dishonoring of ourselves in the way that we were taught by our environment to live. And that's why we find a lot of people with anxiety and depression, and people lashing out at others, and having breakdowns in their way of relating with each other, and not feeling like they fit in with each other. It's because if you're not your true self, you're not going to feel like you fit in. And you'll find yourself jumping through hoops, and then you'll also find yourself unfulfilled, because somewhere deep inside you, or even on the surface of you, that the reason people like you is for the image that you're putting forth. Why? Because that's all you ever gave them the chance to like. You didn't give them the opportunity to know the real you, and therefore you cheated yourself. You broke your own heart. You cheated yourself out of being known and out of being loved and appreciated for who you are, not only by others but by yourself. And you may feel like this was put on you by parental units or by society. Like, well, society said I had to do this. Society said I had to achieve. I saw what happened to people who didn't achieve, and they were ostracized, and they were put down, and they were made to feel lesser. It's like, sure, that's true. Well, those people are probably well on their way to building themselves back up, because they were kicked out of the box. You're still trying to stay in the box and feeling a lot of pressure to do so. So even though it was a societal thing or a parental expectation that puts you in this box, it is up to you to take yourself out. And that looks different for different people depending on what it is you're doing to keep up this facade. But one thing I will warn you about is, like, you will lose people. You will lose people that are just there for this facade. But you'll also inspire people. You'll inspire other people to be their true selves. And you'll attract people who really resonate with you based on who you really are, what you're really passionate about. You'll be able to rest when needed. You'll be able to take the time to be with yourself and figure out who you really are. Figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and what is important to you. Define your values for yourself so that when you're standing in front of others, you know who you are, and that you're not just trying to fill a role or be acceptable by them. Because your value doesn't have anything to do with any of those things. Your value is everything to do with how you treat yourself and how you think of yourself. So if you think of yourself as not good enough to be really seen, then there's a part of you inside that feels disrespected, that feels dishonored, and that doesn't feel happy, to be on Earth, and feels ignored. And so this is, those feelings of depression and anxiety that will arise. Because how can you trust yourself to navigate life when you can't trust yourself to be with yourself, when you can't trust yourself to have your own back? That when you will abandon who you really are in order to fit in. So I just heard the island of misfit toys. It's like the island of misfit toys is actually like the reality, because nobody is the same as anyone else. I can tell you that when we look at astrology, every single chart, even twins, they're different. Everybody has different lessons and energies to learn about here on Earth. So nobody's experience is going to be the same. Nobody's perspective is going to be the same. Nobody is going to have the same way that they want to use their free will. Even one soul that came and split into two bodies to have two experiences at a time is going to make different decisions based on the energy they have and the perspective they have, because they are looking at life through a different angle. Okay, that's what the astrology chart shows, what angle you're looking at life through. And it's none of it's wrong, okay? There's no right or wrong. This is just fragments of energy that everybody's looking at. So if you think of it that way, like you came in and you get to experience a fragment of a whole. The whole is that we all are one, that we all are from this original energy, and that we fragment it off into these shards which come into Earth to experience life. Now, if you decide that you want to mimic somebody else and do what they're doing and say what they're saying and emulate what you like about them, then you're leaving behind and not experiencing the shard that you are. And that shard is just as important as the other one. They all are important to the whole, okay? So if you can imagine, it would be a glass globe and it shatters. Like, you're a piece of that glass globe. So when we're all kind of taking responsibility for tending to our shard, and you don't tend to your own shard, that shard is going to be missing from the mix. So within your community, within the ripple that your soul is here to create, there's an absence. And that is because you're focused on filling a facade or wearing a mask or filling into or living up to an expectation that was put upon you by someone else. And so this would be an invitation for you to really take some time to withdraw and get to know yourself. Let that old pattern of coping, because that's all it's going to be, is a coping mechanism. You didn't want to be ostracized. You didn't want to be rejected. You didn't want to be set aside from the crowd. You didn't want to be thought of as the weirdo or crazy or different. But you are different. Everybody is. People who are trying to fit in are wearing a mask. Now, yes, you may gravitate towards people who are like you naturally, that are not wearing a mask. Won't that be nice? Won't that be nice that nobody is trying to put on a show or live up to some expectation, that they're just being who they are? Let's see if we can get any information on what aspect of life this is. It could be just too general and you already know from your subconscious what I'm talking about, but let's see if there's any other information. Yeah, build confidence. Yeah. Okay. So we could take this even as one of the positive aspects that you have from doing what you did. Like, you felt confident in doing what you were doing, or you wouldn't have done it. So now you can take that confidence and apply it to who you really are. Like, that part of you needs your confidence too. You'd like to stand in who you are truly and authentically and proudly. I hesitate to say proudly. And with honor, I want to say. I want to say with honor, because I really have been getting away from using the word pride and proud, and because it just caps us off at pride and proud, and it's a lower density thing. And I'm, in the process of raising up my vibration and allowing my awareness to be much bigger than that, and I see past that. So that was just like a slip of my habit of speaking, and I've been really getting conscious about how I speak, you know? Let's see what else. Maybe that's why it feels hard to express lately. Let's say desire. Yeah, there's some sort of desire you have to express yourself, and instead you're saving it off with this echo. You're just like doing what was done to you. I mean, doing what people showed you was right to do. You have a destiny that you're here for. And it doesn't fit in the box, okay? It's driven by passion. So what you've done up till now is part of the journey. It was important for you to know what that was like. We know what we do want by knowing what we don't want. So everything that you've learned being in the position that you have been in has been very important towards your destiny. So you're going to take all the information that you've gained, the knowledge that you've gained, the wisdom that you've gained through living the way you have, take it forward on your path. And let yourself express who you really are, right? With honor. You have something that you want. And this is going to also involve, cleaning up the heartbreak that you've caused. It may have caused heartbreak when you realized your parents wanted you to be something other than what you are. That hurt. So that part of you needs to be cleaned up. It may have caused heartbreak when you realized that you yourself weren't allowing yourself to be who you really are. You'll need to forgive yourself. You'll need to honor yourself and clean up the hurt that may have caused. There may have been times where you hurt yourself by declining your need for rest, because you were sold on the idea that rest was for weak people, or whatever it may be, the story that you told. But that story is going to need to be cleaned up, because there's a part of you that needs some rest as well. And there may have been some things that you're holding on to in your life, either those patterns themselves or people, experiences, places you go, things that are ready to be let go of based on who you really are. And that is part of the process as well. So then when you go forward and shine in front of everybody, you will be an example of who you really are, and the shard, the fragment that you really came to be. Okay? So it's really, I want to say important, and it's really time. Okay? And thank you for being open to hearing this, because I think this is a pretty common thing. This is like what a lot of people have to break out of. If you haven't been breaking out of this already, or if there wasn't something in you that refused to fit in the first place, then you are in the process of breaking out of this stuff. Everybody has to be, Like, there's no island of misfit toys. Like, we are all misfit toys, if you wanted to label it that way. Like, there's no one that is, we're not cookie cutter examples of being human. We're shards of a whole that are having an experience, looking through a specific lens. That we get to express, that we get to experience, and that we get to learn from, and that we get to contribute to the whole by being. Okay. All right, pick one. That is going to complete your reading. Thank you for being here. And remember, it's just information to reflect on, so only take what's helpful for you. And I'm going to move on to pick two. I picked two. I'm going to just shuffle the cards. We're going to ask. That one was in the last reading, so you might be attracted to more than one pile. If you are, feel free. Ace of Wands, Five of Pentacles, Queen of Cups. I want to say that you were inspired to something, your heart felt called to it, and it was totally an inspired idea, but when you tried it, it didn't work out. And you don't know why, because you knew it was something you were meant to do. Let's get a couple more cards to see. Maybe now, as a result, you're not trusting your intuition as much and you feel doubtful. You feel hesitant to trust yourself because you were led into this direction where it didn't work out. Like it was supposed to work out. You were listening to your intuition. It's like you want to throw your hands up at it because it's like it didn't go how you expected, and you're not willing to be so naive anymore as to think it would be all right. Yeah, okay. Feels like it was a harsh lesson, and maybe it's even caused you to think that you have to kind of go to the dark side, that you'll not put emotions in it and make decisions that are really risky and like cutthroat, kind of, you know what I mean? Like not really caring about who you hurt going forward because the way that it was said to work didn't work for you. And now it's like you take the high road, I'll take the low road. Like you may be tempted. You may already be on the low road, meaning willing to do things that backstab people, betray people, go behind people's back, were two-faced, gossip behind them back, use things as leverage against them, try to dirty their reputations, gossip, manipulate them, trick them, try to take from them, steal from them. You may be doing any of those things, or you may just be tempted by it and just feeling like, well, why should I? Why should I take the high road if it didn't work out for me the way it was supposed to? Okay, so maybe you saw somebody in your life do this, like give up and just kind of like say, well, this is just the way it is. Someone's going to be the bad guy. And would you believe that it's just a mimic? Would you believe that it's just something that you saw done? So you choose to do it too, and it's not really who you are? What do you think when I say that? Like, what if who you really are is in there, just like surrendered and waiting and frozen, waiting for the time that you'll come back and free it. Like your heart is just kind of like stunned and is waiting for you to come back and retrieve it. With all this boss energy you've decided to, it's like everybody knows that when someone's puffing up their chest and like acting tough, like everyone else can see that they're just acting. Everyone else knows that when someone's puffing up their chest, it's because they're really feeling weak inside. Like everybody knows that, so you're not fooling anybody, right? Like when you act in certain ways, you tell yourself, nobody knows that I'm not really strong, or that I'm kind of empty, or that I'm just angry. Nobody knows I'm fooling them. Look how they buy into it. Yep. Is this person going to buy into it? Like, let me make sure, let me vet them out and see, and I'll make their life miserable if they're not going to buy into my facade. It's like, no, everyone sees through it. It's just like some people allow it for you. Some people are just like, well, that's how that person is. It's like, what are you going to do? Some people are like, oh, that's just that person's mask. I know they have a heart in there. you know? Some people are like that. But like everybody knows. So it's silly. It's silly because all this power that you're kind of using to protect your hurt emotion could actually be used to help that hurt part of you feel protected enough to come out. But this is something that you have to choose to do. Like, it was not going to just happen for you. You're going to have to be okay with going into parts that you don't know about, right? Because you're doing the known. You know what it's like if you act this way. You know what it's like if you strategize. You are acting in mimic, meaning it's all been done before. Meaning we've already, as a humanity, studied what you're doing. That's why we all know it. That's why we all see through it. Okay, and I'm not trying to be condescending. I know it can be difficult to be called out in some ways. But I'm kind of really trying to push on you a little bit, because as you get angry, if you feel anger when I'm saying this, it's like, yes, you do have emotions and you're allowed to have them. And you know what? Anger is the cover emotion for fear and sadness and brokenheartedness. And that tells you do have something to protect in there. So, let's see, you may even be using sort of like magic, you know, like black magic. You might be trying to affect other people in that way. Everything you do weighs on your heart, right? So, when it comes time to weigh your heart, are you going to be light as a feather? Or is there a part of you that's being burdened by the actions that you're taking? Because they're not even your actions. Like we said, it's a mimic program. You're just coping with something that's really difficult to cope with. Now, perhaps you maybe just wanted to check this out so that you could study it, so that you could learn it, so that you could help people out of it when you find your way out, so that you could see that program in others and be like, oh, I remember when I was like that. And then help them break that egoic part of them that is stuck in that, you know? That's why I say everyone can see it. It's because I don't want you to feel like you have a place to hide in it anymore. Because you're here for a reason. And you're here because I'm a reader that will call people out when it's my time to do it. If they've come to me, if they've asked for help, and I see it, in a lot of cases, I will call it out. I just thought of an exception, because I have had clients that have come to me in person that I knew were not ready, that I knew were there for other reasons, that I would not call directly out because it was just antagonistic if I did. But if you truly want to help yourself, then I want to be there to help you eradicate any of those places where you can just go hide, you know, after you become aware of this, because that's what you've been doing, right? I don't want to leave you unaware of any of the aspects of this. Now, I know that you feel triggered by what I'm saying, right? There may be tactics that you use, like lies that you tell yourself or others, or both. It's like, this is what you're feeding yourself. Okay? That is what you're building your life on. And it's not even who you really are. It's really, really not who you really are. It's a coping mechanism, literally just a mimic program that you are stuck in. So, let's get you out, right? Like, maybe there's a healer that you can go to. Maybe you are a healer and that's why you're experiencing this very difficult stuff that'll take some time and some effort to get yourself out of. Like, you may have friends that you need to talk to about it. Find someone that you can trust with your deepest shadows. Okay, like maybe the person who knows you do black magic, or someone in a craft group even. It could be a much lighter place, like someone who can kind of just be with you through the difficult uprooting of what you have to look at within yourself, which is mostly just egoic coping structures, which is stuff that's been taught to you, which is coping mechanisms that already existed on Earth that you came to learn from and try out, and that you also came to overcome. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of pain to go through, and from that pain is your wisdom gained. So where does it hurt? Be with the part of yourself that feels that hurt. This is over for you. Like, whoever was around you supporting this for you, letting you be like that, the ones that were quiet and just said, oh, I know in their heart they're really a softie. Those people are going to start falling away. There's not going to be any support for this anymore. This is something that you've outgrown. That's why we're talking about it right now. It is completely on your path to stop doing this, to reconnect with who you really are in your heart, and to build your confidence from there. You don't have to puff up your chest and protect yourself any longer. Now, I want to take this down a notch a little bit, and let's kind of be a little bit more gentle with you, okay? I want to reassure you that it's okay, that, it's important for you to find a coping mechanism when we get our heart hurt or when we get disappointed because something doesn't work the way we expected, and we pick up one of these ways to cope with it. It's understandable because we needed to cope with it. But now, in retrospect, when you get out of this and you become aware of how this program happened, you can look back and go back to the turning point where you decided to take up this way of acting and kind of say, well, what else could I do? Like, what is the actual solution if coping with it in that way wasn't the best for me as a person who has a heart? Then what is it that I really could do? Well, you could try again. You could realize that when we fail, that we're actually discovering a useful piece of information that can help us in going forward. Because say you tried something and you succeeded the first time. Well, sure, you'd succeed and that would be nice, but you wouldn't know why you succeeded because you didn't know all of the ways that you could have failed. So by failing first, we get to know a lot more information about our success when we do have it. Do you see? This is why experiments are so important, because it gives us a wider range, a bigger picture view of what it is we're dealing with. And that's really important when we're going to be mastering a topic. So this could really affect your marriage, where you're going to need to reparent yourself and how you are behaving. And you could be getting outer pressure from your marriage partner or from other commitments that you've made. Like maybe they have placed a lot of expectations on you and you're navigating in such a way that you're not investing your heart in it. And it's sort of like when something happens between you and another person, because they're calling you out on it, they're putting pressure on you, they're not kind of letting you be the same old way that you were, that moment is going to be a key moment for you to be able to reparent yourself. Meaning where you would have lashed out before, where you would have called them names, run away, gossiped about them, told their secrets, where you would have done that. Instead, you're going to be with that part of yourself and ask yourself, what do you need right now? You need to be reassured? I got you. You need love? I got you. You need a walk in the forest? I got you. And in your marriage, if there's like a blow up, if there's like an expectation that's unmet, or somebody calling you out because you're not opening your heart and using your heart in the interaction, it's like that might be something where you would normally lash out and like point out their flaws, or even just open up and fake your emotion. Instead of doing those things, you're going to take the opportunity to look at yourself and go, okay, well, what is it about me? Why don't I want to expose this? It's like, okay, I have a disappointed, hurt heart. And then maybe you explain that. Or maybe you say, well, I just need some time to deal with myself and then I'll get back to you. You know what I mean? Just like change something in the equation that has to do with acknowledging the pattern, validating why you have it, accepting that you have it, and loving the part of you that has it. And this will allow you to break out of this coping mechanism, which is, to different levels with different people. Like sometimes we just get disappointed when we try something that we were led to, and we just don't try again at all. We don't develop, harsh coping mechanisms to keep people out or be ruthless towards others, but we just don't try again. So if that's the case where you just don't try again, maybe it's just that you start comforting the parts of you that don't want to try. You look for the hidden benefit of not trying again. And then once you've comforted those things, you look for more solutions. Ask and you shall receive. Like, what else could I try? What might I be learning from this experience? What's the opportunity in this? It has a lot to do with the story you're telling yourself, okay? Feed yourself the good stuff. Feed yourself the stuff that lets you feel nourished. Be willing to step into the unknown, because this mimic program, it's unknown. It's a mimic. You saw someone do it, maybe in such an early stage that you don't even remember who would have taught you this. Maybe it was a movie. Maybe it was just a peer, Maybe it was a different lifetime. But whatever it is, it's been done, and it's not who you really are. So it's time to allow that part of yourself to emerge and have the light of day. Right? We welcome that part of you. Okay, we honor you and your process, and especially since this was probably a difficult one to hear. Not all of you were on the end of the scale where you were so harsh and ruthless against others. As a result, some of you were just shut down and focused on something else instead. So just take what applies to you, And I know I really keyed in and focused in on the person that went ruthless, but it was just because that person would be having the most difficult time really opening themselves to look at this. So that's why I did that. Okay? So it's meant to be helpful, and it's just information to reflect on. So just take what is helpful to you. And that is going to complete your reading, pile 2. I remember when. Okay, pick 3. Let's see. The Hierophant in reverse. The Hanged Man. I'm gonna do it like this. The Ace of Cups in reverse. And the Fool. Okay. I want to say this is the energy of rebel without a cause. Have you developed a habit of just doing whatever everyone else isn't doing? Like, is that the mimic program? That's interesting. How could that be a mimic program? I suppose it's that if you were doing it just because you didn't want to relate to anybody else, right? You didn't want to get your heart involved. So it was like a coping mechanism. You're breaking free out of prescribed ways of being, but you're not doing it because you don't want to be in mimic. You're doing it because you learned that as a way to keep yourself from being invested emotionally. Very interesting. And keep yourself out of, like, tradition. I think you definitely are willing to spend time in contemplation, looking at things from a different point of view. So there's a lot of strategy involved in the leaps of faith that you take, but that's okay. The issue might only be that you're not letting your heart lead you. You're letting your mind lead you. Okay? Now, so the mimic is that you've cut your heart out of it. You've not let the feminine part of you be informative of what the masculine part of you takes for action. You're not letting yourself, it's like, say you broke out of a structure that you were in, an expectation that someone made for you. Fine, wonderful. You know me on this channel. I'm all for it. However, if you had not involved the emotional body in the choice, then when you do so, you might do so at the detriment and harm to others' feelings. And also your own if you were paying attention to them. But you're not, so you're probably hurting other people. So, like, you decide to stop going to... You agreed to go to some place with a friend. And then you decide, no, actually, that's not my scene. But you don't bother to tell the other friend. You just ghost them. You're just like, whatever. I'm not going. I can't be tied down to expectations. See, you haven't taken into consideration how what you do affects other people's feelings, or your own, because you've cut your feelings out of the equation. So, the mimic is that maybe somebody did this to you. Maybe somebody also was reckless in their own behavior, in their freedom, wanting, and didn't consider your feelings, and now you don't prioritize that at all. So the mimic is that you're carrying on a pattern of hurting others in your effort to just not be conformative, not be a conformist. So it's kind of like, in this case, all you would really need to do to break this pattern is to add in a healthy aspect of it, which hadn't been shown to you in the mimic. And that is to take into consideration how you feel and how others feel with what you're doing. And it's just so that you can apply kindness, you know? It's like, you know, if you have plans with somebody and you decided that it's not for you, it's not that hard to just tell them. Just say, look, I really do care about how you feel and I'm not trying to hurt you, but I've decided that this isn't for me. Like, it's important to show people that you care about them in what you do. So it's like, I've decided that, I don't know what this could be. I'm going to tie myself to this bridge and not eat any food until the police are defunded or something, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, what if you have a child? Like, maybe that child feels a way about that you're literally abandoning their life, you're giving up your own life for a cause without caring about how that affects your child. Like, do you see? Like, this is an extreme example, but there are people getting hurt around you, and you are acting like at least you're not stuck in a box. At least you're sticking up for yourself. At least you're doing what you want. Okay. You've maybe even left people behind that care about you, that might be able to come back into your life when you start caring. When you implement heart into your equation here. You know, perhaps you are meant to be a pioneer of something new here on Earth. But it always comes from the heart. When I talked about being one of the shards of the energy of the collective, I I talked, like, each shard has a heart. That's the guidance. That's who the essence of who you are. It has to come through there. Otherwise, you're just a program. You're just a mind program. And mind programs without a heart are always going to get us in trouble, are always going to hurt somebody, are always going to lead to war, are always going to lead to isolation and death because it's not sustainable. So you may be shining a light on an issue here by experiencing it, by saying, oh, I've been that person that acted without caring, and I understand the damage because if I look back in my life and I see the damage that I've done, and I talk to these people that I left behind, I realize how that works. You may be realizing that you told yourself a story about how it worked, and it actually doesn't work that way. That caring actually doesn't mean that you just care about a cause or you care about humanity as a whole, but you also care about individuals. And you're not going to be able to do that easily without first caring about your own individual heart. And your own heart has some things that it wants to do. Your own heart can lead you to not what society deems is right or wrong, but to like what your particular energy signature values. So let's celebrate how far you've come and what you've learned from this experience. Let's make sure that we take all the good stuff from what you are leaving behind when you let go of any of these kind of rebel without a cause things that you may have been inclined to do. It's like you've learned some stuff. Let's make sure we take that. That's part of it. And, you know, wherever you have like a brotherly relationship, a friendship that you can come back together with, if not for celebration, at least for finding out the truth. Like, have this conversation about, like, well, what really happened here? Like, I wonder, like, did this affect you? Because I got this reading that said that it might have affected you, and I kind of want to know, like, you know, and I want you to know how I feel about it. Like, there's something here. There's something here that needs to be clarified. And it's because of your operating system, which was that you were not taking heart into consideration. While you were being brave, while you were going forward, while you were having your own agenda, there are people that you've left behind that are affected emotionally. And, you know, even that's karma for us, right? Like if you don't take the initiative to go back and find out what the pattern was revealing to you, like, life will find a way, you know? Maybe these people will pop up into your existence going forward, or there'll be new people with kind of the ability to speak up. But you're also going to want to, like, address your reputation due to this. It's like you now have the reputation of kind of being heartless in certain ways that you act. You've got admiration, earth angel. I see. There's one more, and then I'm going to try to see what this is. Okay. This is something that stemmed from your own foundation, okay? Someone you look up to, someone that you, maybe it was an older brother, a father, someone who took care of you, someone who provided for you, someone that you valued, may have acted in the same way. And maybe you did want to be like them. And maybe you do have some of those skills. In fact, there's a lot of good skills. We've said that here, right? Like, those are great skills, and I'm all for stepping out of the box and not just conforming to the same old thing that everyone else is doing. But I am also of the understanding that there's masculine and feminine parts of us, and both are part of the equation. And if we try to block off and just operate from the mind, we will drive ourselves into the ground. And people around us know it, and our hearts know it. And if we're going to ignore those two things, like, you can just see kind of what will happen there, right? And so, in honor of this person that you did admire, like, let's just say, like, admiration is really inspiration. Like, let's not admire somebody else, because whatever you see in them exists in you. You can embody that for yourself and let it inspire you to something greater. It's like, maybe you can look at the person and see where the flaws were in the situation. Like, maybe you know that some people got hurt, or some people didn't like it, or they had a dark side too. Maybe they acted all light when people could see them, but then behind closed doors they did all the darker stuff. Like, maybe, right? Like, there's some sort of way that you've viewed this person that is not true. And when you've emulated them, you've kept an important piece of the equation out, which is inhibiting you at this time. So that's the mimic program for you, pick 3. And again, I want to say, like, all that you've learned from this experience has been beneficial to you, because these are skills that you have, and you know you have now. And you also know, when you figure out what works, you'll know what doesn't work, and that's always a helpful piece of information, because you'll know why you succeeded when you do in integrating the heart into the balance of how you're operating. Okay, so I know it looks like you might have to have some difficult conversations when you come back together with some people that you may have hurt, and that may be difficult. So I want to honor you in that process, and like, that just might be the process that helps you open your heart. So I wouldn't skip that if that's the case, right? Like, this is something that your soul's set up for you to experience. So, and this is just the timing of it to let it fall away. So remember, this is just information to reflect on. It's meant to be helpful, so only take what's helpful to you. Leave the rest, and perhaps I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.